your brain can't hear, touch, taste or anything, smell or anything. It's getting lots of electric signals through the neurons, right?
Yeah.
The brain, especially this neocortex, in neocortex we have this thing called cortical columns. In cortical columns we have 6 layers as far as we know. So they're trying to interpret all of these electric signals and create a world model. So that's what we are seeing here. So I have a world model that your studio is here, light is there, the mic is here. So I know my body is here, and to your brain, even your body is external thing, right? So when you are playing cricket, bat become you, right? So when your arm is chopped off because of accident, let's say, you still feel like you got your arm. We call that the phantom limb. So that's how your brain is working. So usually there are stuff that you're consciously doing and unconsciously doing.
Okay.
If you are doing something consciously, then that's probably processed in your neocortex. And there are lots of stuff that we do instinctively, like your heart is beating, your eyelids are working, and your blood's pumping. Lots of things are happening, right? And your metabolism is always in a fine-tuned mode. So all of those stuff are happening in your old brain or the reptilian brain. So reptilian brain or the old brain, largely the limbic system, is actually collecting tons of data and sum that up to a feeling, right?
Okay.
Sometimes you feel bad and you don't even understand why you feel bad. But the beauty in human brain, the magic that we have is we can have thoughts about our feelings. That's a beautiful thing. Like, let's say I'm feeling sad. I can ask, why do I feel sad? That means your conscious brain, your neocortex, is questioning the decisions of your old brain. Your new brain is questioning the decisions of your old brain. So old brain is most of the time spontaneous and impulsive.
Yeah.
And most of the time it's wrong. We don't know something, we go through a certain process and then we learn it. But the most important thing is world is changing really fast. So we think about something and we got some conclusion, but maybe after a couple of weeks it could be invalid. So we have to rethink that. And sometimes we learn something, we go through a certain process and we learn something, and then after some time it's not really important anymore. And if it's a muscle memory, like you are doing it without thinking about it too much, then you have to go through the process of unlearning it and learn new skills, maybe replace that with new skills. When we were a baby or kid, then our attention is always on, like we are asking question, mom, what's that? Dad, what's that? So we are collecting lots of information and building this general world model inside our brain. So even now, we still have the capacity to do it as an adult till you die. So all you have to do is keep your attention up. So if you can do the same thing, hey, what's that and what's that light and why that light is there, why this mic is black and that one is like a kind of silver color, why is that? So if you can maintain that attitude, you can continuously update your world model like a kid.
Welcome to Business Advisor Global channel. I think you can remember I have already told that I want to invite some of the professionals in the business field to discuss more about the topics that I have already discussed with you all. So today I have invited to one of the leading YouTuber in Sri Lanka. I think you have already heard about his name as well. The famous YouTube channel called TechTrack. He is the one who has founded it, and in addition to that, he's a science communicator, and whatever the things that any Sri Lankans wants to know, he is the person where we need to get the consultancy. So today I thought I actually invited him to talk about something special topic which is really important for all the SME, and not only SME, even for any other businessman who is looking for his new avenues or else to enhance his capacity. I think this discussion will be really fruitful for you, because the things that you can learn from him. So I welcome Malinda Alahakoon to Business Advisor YouTube channel.
Hey, thanks for inviting me.
Okay, Malinda, so first of all I would like to know, so as we have already planned, shall we give a brief introduction about what is rethinking and unlearning? So first of all, shall we move to the rethinking part?
Right, yes, because we all understand the concept of thinking. We have some data, we have some evidence, and we use those things to think about something.
Yeah.
So we all get that part. And we totally understand what does it mean by learning. So we don't know something, we go through a certain process and then we learn it. But the most important thing is world is changing really fast. So we think about something and we got some conclusion, but maybe after a couple of weeks it could be invalid. So we have to rethink that. And sometimes we learn something, we go through a certain process and we learn something, and then after some time it's not really important anymore. And if it's a muscle memory, like you are doing it without thinking about it too much, then you have to go through the process of unlearning it and learn new skills, maybe replace that with new skills. So that's the whole generic idea of rethinking and unlearning. Super important skills, because we are living in a world which is changing really fast. So where the adaptability and the flexibility matters a lot rather than all the decisions that you are taking. So that's the generic idea, and we'll talk about like how it's important for businesses later on.
Exactly, Malinda. So as you correctly mentioned, now this is really changing world that we all of are living. So with that, since we are more focusing on the SME sector, especially not in Asian countries, even in the other countries, sometimes you might be in another different region. But how this is important, because we have the traditions, we have practiced some of the things so far. So are you asking them to change it at once, or else will it be a process? How it should be done?
Yes, I'm living in a very cultural and religious region. So in my region, we have lots of ideas which are time tested, because we practice those things for millenniums. And sometimes, like back in the days, the world didn't change really fast. It was changing slowly but not rapidly, like last few decades. So we didn't have to rethink stuff too much and relearn stuff too much. We slowly learn what we did for the last couple of thousands of years, and then we do those stuff for the rest of our life. But the thing is, like when it comes to small and medium scale businesses, now that we are facing rapidly changing markets, so all the things that you thought was correct last week might be totally incorrect this week. So you have to go through this rapid pace of the market changes and stuff. So yes, we have lots of inheritance, time tested ideas, and all you should do is, like, you don't really have to change all of those things like all at once. So the primary idea is, once in a while you should revisit those ideas, rethink those ideas, and question them. Is it still valid? So maybe you have a business practice which we practice for the last couple of millenniums, right?
Correct.
So then next week you revisit that idea, rethink, is it still valid? If it's still, most of the time it is, right? It's still valid. But sometimes you will figure out that, okay, it's not valid anymore. We used to cook with wood. Now that we cook with cooking gas. Now that we cook with electric, induction cookers and that kind of stuff. So we are going through those stuff. So maybe our cooking process should change. And maybe the ingredients we are using should change. Ask questions. Yes, we practice those stuff for millenniums. Yes, time tested, and we are so comfortable with it. And there's a huge momentum towards it. But once in a while, go and question all of those small things and rethink. And if you feel like, and if you can prove the fact that you have logical grounds, like you have evidence and facts that we should change it to face the new world, go ahead and change it.
Yes. Malinda, I would like to ask something different from you. Now, we all are, as the businessmen or else the people who are really interested to start the business, we have the daily routines. We are basically, most of us get up early in the morning and we have the daily plan. So with that, how we can rethink about these processes? Because I have heard to you that you are talking much about that we need to learn every day. So how we can rearrange our life by using this rethinking method?
Totally. So when it comes to time management, the best method that we ever discovered, like throughout the human history, is the time boxing. Time boxing means like usually when we had to do something, like let's say today you have a to-do list, right?
Yeah.
So you're crossing off like one item by one. But instead of writing a to-do list, you are actually blocking the time in your calendar. Then you live by the calendar. So that's how, that is the most effective time management technique. But to start that process is pretty difficult, because let's say you had to do something and you had to block the calendar and you don't know how long it will take, right? So when you're starting it like today, I don't know how long this will take. So,
exactly.
But still I had blocked the calendar, and in first couple of weeks, you'll be wildly inaccurate about your time estimation. But once you go through that process, then you have a pretty good idea how long it will take to do this kind of shoot, to edit this kind of thing, or prepare for this kind of video. So then you can pretty accurately time box and keep a decent buffer too. Then you live by the calendar, and that's the best way to manage your time. So then you can allocate some time to read about the new stuff and what are the trends in business world, and you can use a tool like Feedly and read news, and you can use a tool like Perplexity to do a quick research about something, and you can allocate some time for that kind of stuff, or read a book, and maybe do nothing. Doing nothing is also important, because we're always doing something, and sometimes when you do nothing and be super bored, some crazy idea come to your mind.
Is that so?
It is, yes. You should give it a try. So because like we are always like, this stimulant world, like you are getting a notification and some work and lots of stimulation happening. And you desensitize everything maybe for like 20-30 minutes and be super bored and embrace the boredom, and sometimes crazy ideas coming to your mind when you're super bored. And always write them down, because your brain is a really good idea generation device, and it's a really bad idea storage device. So when you have that kind of idea, always write it down on Google Keep Note or Notion or whatever the tool you're using. Then later on you can visit those things, and if those things are applicable to the current world or your current business situation, go ahead and execute them.
That's superb. Actually, Malinda, when you're talking about this one, I remember recently I read a book, Robin Sharma's one of the famous book, Black Book for Stunning Success, right? So in that book, he has already mentioned change or else read some strange things every day. How do you feel that? Because as a businessman, I'm always looking at the business facts and whatever the changes happening in the business. I have never listened to the scientists, I have never listened to the poems, I have never listened to the songs. But he is mentioning in that book, if you can do something totally irrelevant for you, then you can get some sort of new ideas. Do you agree with that?
Like if you take a look at the structure of your brain, there could be some truth to it. And now that I think of, I kind of do this myself, because every day I try to study something that I usually don't study. And now that we have like advanced, sophisticated tools to do this kind of stuff, like we have lots of video streaming platforms and search engines, large language models to efficiently do this thing. And when you are doing something that you didn't do before, you have to maximize your attention mechanism in the brain. And that's super important. Like let's say, now that you're walking around in your studio, in your office, you don't really need attention anymore, right? Like now that you're doing it mindlessly, like you can walk to your office, and let's say power went out, everything is in dark, still you can walk through these doors and everything, right? Because you don't really need this attention mechanism anymore, because your world model is constant. But when you are reading about something you usually don't read, now that you need 100% attention to learn that thing, that's important. Then you're slowly practicing how to ignite your attention and pay attention to something and get it done. And fun fact, when we were kids, when we were actually babies, we did this throughout the day, right? So when we were a baby or kid, then our attention is always on, like we are asking question, mom, what's that? Dad, what's that? So we are collecting lots of information and building this general world model inside our brain. So even now, we still have the capacity to do it as an adult till you die. So all you have to do is keep your attention up. So if you can do the same thing, hey, what's that, and what's that light, and why that light is there, why this mic is black and that one is like a kind of silver color, why is that? So if you can maintain that attitude, you can continuously update your world model like a kid. And that's super important for a business person. And I don't really think it's optional. It's mandatory. You must do it.
Yeah, because I want to put that item to our discussion. The thing was, actually we were talking about the rethinking and the unlearning part. So I think that's one of the methods that we can practice. So what are the other methods we have, Malinda, to rethink the whole thing?
Yes. So the whole idea of rethinking means like get your mindset right. So what are we doing? So when I was reading this book, Think Again by Adam Grant, so I got this idea, like it was a total eye-opening moment when I read that book. So there are several mindsets. So sometimes we are thinking like a preacher. We are saying something and you accept it because we have a certain relationship. And sometimes you are acting like a prosecutor. I'm trying to destroy your belief and give my belief to you. And when you are thinking like a politician, I have this idea and I seek your approval. I seek your applause to my idea. So that's what usually happening. But scientists, we have an idea, but we don't know whether that's true or not. We call that a hypothesis. Then we test that hypothesis and check whether it's valid or not. Either way, we are happy because we created new knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So when you are a businessman, you have to think like a scientist. So you, instead of hypothesis, you have a new idea, business idea. And instead of a prototype, you have a minimum viable product. You test that in the market, you collect data and check whether this is working. If it's working, you scale it. If it's not working, you go back to drawing boards, come up with a new idea, new minimum viable product, new market testing, new data, and check whether it's working. So then you can truly understand the market and come up with a better product. So this mindset is super important. You have to think like a scientist. And yes, in the mix, you have to think like a preacher, prosecutor, and a politician in the mix. But largely, you should think like a scientist. And then you can come up with better product. And mostly, you can come out of your ego. So exactly. I like it this way. So the rest of the world should follow the way like I like it. That's really bad news when it comes to market. So you have to listen to market and cater to that demand.
Yeah, actually you have pointed out very good concept, Malinda, minimum viable product. Because when it comes to SME, small and medium entrepreneurs, they might think that this is not relevant for us, or else are we in position to practice this in the practical world? That kind of questions might be there in their mind. What do you think, and how they need to overcome this barrier?
Yes, the whole idea of minimum viable product is we are trying to minimize the risk of doing it. Like let's say you do huge investment, you are coming up with a huge product range, and then after doing all of those stuff, you figure out that nobody needs this stuff. Okay. That's going to be a disaster, right? So what you should do is you have the minimum investment, minimum effort, minimum time, and you come up with some very basic thing. Then you test that in the market, and if it's working, then you can evolve it. So then you are reducing the risk. So you don't really have to worry about it too much. And even if it fails, it's okay. You learn something and then you drop it. It's sunk cost, you move to the next one. So small and medium scale entrepreneurs, their biggest problem is not the risk, not the money, not the time, not the effort. They don't really like to be wrong.
Okay.
They always like to be right. So let's say I have this idea. I came up with the minimum viable product and test that in the market and nobody needs it. Then I feel bad, right? Yeah. You don't really have to, right? You have a hypothesis, you collect data, and hypothesis is null, and it's okay. It's still new knowledge. Then you go to your next hypothesis and check whether it's valid or null. So same way, you should think like a scientist. You don't really have to be right. If it's right, then you can implement it. If it's not right, if it's not working in the market, you can change it, you can pivot it, or you can drop it altogether and move to a new minimum viable product, new idea, new minimum viable product. You don't really have to be afraid, or you should not hurt your ego.
Okay.
Because your ego is hurting because your minimum viable product failed in the market, because you're thinking that that minimum viable product is part of you.
Okay.
It's something else, like it's a little experiment that you are running, right? It's not part of you, and it's not part of your identity. Run tons of experiments, collect lots of data. If it's working, go ahead and implement it. Maybe after some time that will become your identity. Like Steve Jobs always goes with iPhone, right? iPod and all of those Apple products. Yes, it's part of his identity. But before that, like he tried lots of minimum viable product and tried lots of things. And the Apple way is usually they never release a minimum viable product. They test that internally. Yeah. But this is the Apple way. But Microsoft way, they always release the minimum viable product. And if something goes wrong, they send a patch, new software update, that kind of stuff. So find your way, but don't think that experiment is part of you. Experiment may be successful, may be failure. Either way, it's okay. It's not part of you.
It's a kind of a learning curve, is it?
Yeah.
Right. Malinda, one more point that I want to ask from you. Now, we have seen that many crazy ideas, right, so have converted into the businesses right now. Is it a result of rethinking? What do you think?
Yes, I remember what Peter Thiel said. So he said that to be successful in the business world, you should have a contrarian idea. That means that's an idea, you know it's true, but nobody else does. So it's a contrarian idea and it's right. That means you tested that in the market and you have solid data set to prove that it's right. Then you should implement that in massive scale. So most of the crazy idea, most of the contrarian ideas are wrong. So that's the biggest problem. That's why they are contrarian ideas. Otherwise, they'll be just regular ideas, conventional ideas. Most of the conventional ideas are right. That's why they are conventional ideas. Most of the contrarian ideas are wrong. That's why they are contrarian. But you have to go through all of those contrarian ideas which are usually wrong and find something which is correct and you know it, nobody else does. Then you have to test whether it's correct. If it's correct, you should implement that in massive scale. So that's the usual pattern of business growth, and that's what Peter Thiel said. And that's why most of those crazy ideas are going super in a growth trajectory. But the thing that you shouldn't ignore is most of the crazy ideas are failures. We don't know about those things because they were failures. Right? So sometimes more than 90%, maybe 99% of the crazy ideas were total failures, but we never heard about those things. But if one crazy idea blew up and now is dominating the market, we know about that. We call that the survivorship bias. But it's not about being crazy. It's about being contrarian and right. Both should happen. And large-scale implementation. Crazy and right. And large-scale implementation, then you have huge growth.
That means basically it should have a more probability to have it, is it?
Kind of is. Yes. So the whole idea is most of the people are thinking that going crazy is the way. No, you should be crazy and right.
What should be there?
I can be crazy and destroy everything in the studio, right? That's wrong, right? I'll be in trouble. You'll be in trouble. We all be in trouble. So I should have a crazy idea, and it should be a right idea, working idea, useful idea, and then you should be able to impact millions of people with that idea. Then you have a good business, growing business. That's Uber, that's Airbnb.
Malinda, one more thing now, since you are talking about the thinking process and everything, I would like to know how this is chemically or else scientifically how this is happening in our brain. If we are rethink about something, how it's working, how the neurons are working, how it's happening.
Right. So all of those thinking is happening in our neocortex. So neocortex is something like a huge sheet, like a lunch napkin. And its thickness is about 2.5 millimeters. In this huge sheet, it's wrapped around our reptilian brain. So you have amygdala and your hippocampus and the basal ganglia and all of those basic functionalities coming from our ancestors, chimpanzees, right? And we have this neocortex. It's wrapped around this old brain or the reptilian brain. It's doing all the thinking, all the rational thing. And most of the time, your reptilian brain is asking you to do something, and you have this prefrontal cortex. Most of the time, prefrontal cortex is the person who's saying, shh, don't do that. Not now. Not now. Not now person is the prefrontal cortex. So the most beautiful thing is that your brain can't see. Your brain can't hear, touch, taste or anything, smell or anything. It's getting lots of electric signals through the neurons, right? the brain, especially this neocortex, in neocortex we have this thing called cortical columns. In cortical columns we have 6 layers as far as we know. So they're trying to interpret all of these electric signals and create a world model, right?
Okay.
So that's what we are seeing here. So I have a world model that your studio is here, light is there, the mic is here. So I know my body is here. And to your brain, even your body is external thing, right? So when you are playing cricket, bat become you, right? So when your arm is chopped off because of accident, let's say, you still feel like you got your arm. We call that the phantom limb. So that's how your brain is working. When your brain, the neocortex is learning something, it's reinforcing a certain neuron path. Okay. So that means like your neuron is electrically activated and chemically activated too. So we have this thing called synapse. So all the time like the neurotransmitters are passing through the synapse. So when you repeat something, it's get reinforced. So we call that the fire together, wire together in the brain. Okay. Right? So if you have lots of neurons fire together, they are wired together. So that's how we learn something. So that's how we build a new world model. When it comes to rethinking and unlearning, what we are trying to do is we have a world model, we have fixed world model, and we have a world model about the whole universe.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Not the world model, it's a universe model. Like I don't really think any other animal got a universe model, but we got it. Yeah. So we are trying to edit it actively, especially in the business landscape. You have a world model about the business, so you play around with it and you try to actively change it, and sometimes you question this part, then you try to replace it. And the fun fact is brain always needs repetition to change something. You can't simply delete it and copy paste something else. We don't really have that functionality. I wish we had, but the brain doesn't have that.
We don't have,
It could have been really nice if we had something like that. So you have to, like, let's say you have this idea, this ideology, let's say. Then you have to repeatedly think about something else to replace that ideology with a new ideology. It's going to take some time, right? And you have to give it that time. Throughout the time, you need your attention. That's why I said that the practicing attention is so important. If you have attention, then you can, after some time, you can replace it. But it's never going to be 100% replacement, because brain, nothing is 100%, nothing is 0%. But you can change the biases of that neural pathway to the new idea. Then that will become your new nature. That will become your new world and the new world model. That's how we rethink. And unlearning is also, most of the time, unlearning is not about deleting something. We replace that with some new skill. So then, like, let's say, whenever I meet someone, I always shake hand. Yeah. Then I go to Japan, right? Now that I had to unlearn shake hand, and I had learned bowing, right? Yeah. So, see, those things will take some time. So if I move to Japan, for the first couple of weeks, I'll try to shake hand everyone I meet. Yeah. Right? And in Sri Lanka, whenever I meet someone, I say, I won. Right? So if I'm coming from a European nation, then it'll take a couple of weeks to learn this in Sri Lanka. If we had some kind of mechanism to delete this, the shake hand, and instantly install Ibuan, it could have been nice, right? But brain is a neural network. Neural networks always work with learning, and learning process take time. So you have to give it that time. Throughout that time, you have to keep up your attention. Then you can go through the changing process. So that's how we rethink and unlearn and relearn things.
Okay, Malinda, actually when you are explaining that, I got another question. Now, so many things we have stored in our brain, isn't it? I believe that you are agreeing with me. And so, as you said, you are asking us to replace this through practicing, right? How fast we can do this? Because if we can do this continuously, are we in position to make it quickly, or else will it take little time to do that?
Yes, as I said before, when it comes to rethinking and unlearning, all you have to do is like keep the attention up.
Okay.
But the actual relearning, unlearning thing and relearning thing will take time. We never know how long it will take, because like when it comes to the habit formation, There are lots of research. The date range is varying from couple of days to couple of hundreds of days.
Okay.
So we never know. So you have to give it, like, let's say you are running a business and you figure out, you rethink, you went through the rethinking process and you figure out that something you should unlearn. Now that you should do it, right? Like, it might take couple of hundreds of days, but still you should do it. So you have to keep your attention up and get it done. There's no other way, right? But with the time, with practice, you'll actually learn this thing to do this unlearning thing and relearning thing pretty quickly. It's like riding a bicycle, swimming.
Okay.
It's a practice. Like, when you have practice, down the time, you'll be able to do it really quickly. Because like, let's say I'm editing with Adobe Premiere, and from tomorrow onwards I have to edit with Final Cut Pro. I'll take the challenge, because I have done that kind of stuff like many times before in my life. So now that I'm not afraid, because I know video editing, I'm changing the tool, no problem, I'll go ahead and do it. It'll be difficult, but it'll be okay after a couple of days. Okay. And after a couple of days, you ask me to go back to DaVinci Resolve, I'll take the challenge. But you know what, like, you are switching those tools because, like, just to brag about it, then no point, right? Like, if you have logical argument, data and evidence to change to, like, let's say you are changing all the computers in the studio to Macs. Now now that you have a really good reason to move from Premiere to Final Cut, because in Macs, Final Cut is way better than Premiere, especially with the M series chips. So then now that you have a really good reason to move to Final Cut Pro, then you can do it. It'll take a couple of days. It'll be uncomfortable couple of days. But after that uncomfortable couple of days, your brain will rewire and you'll be okay and you'll be in a much better position. So why not?
Okay. Malinda, I have actually two questions, but I thought since you have mentioned about the reptilian brain, I want to ask this question, because I think even the viewers are looking for that question. How this reptilian brain is working, especially as a businessman or else as the entrepreneurs, how we can get our works done through these reptilian brains? Because I have heard and I have already read some of the articles regarding the reptilian brain where it's having an instant memory, or a very quick period only they can remember. Is that true, or how it works?
Yeah, so usually there are stuff that you're consciously doing and unconsciously doing.
Okay.
If you're doing something consciously, then that's probably processed in your neocortex.
Okay.
And there are lots of stuff that we do instinctively, like your heart is beating, your eyelids are working, and your blood's pumping. Lots of things are happening, right? And your metabolism is always in a fine-tuned mode. Yeah. So all of those stuff are happening in your old brain, or the reptilian brain. So reptilian brain, or the old brain, largely the limbic system, is actually collecting tons of data and sum that up to a feeling, right?
Okay.
Sometimes you feel bad and you don't even understand why you feel bad. But the beauty in human brain, the magic that we have is we can have thoughts about our feelings. That's a beautiful thing. Like, let's say I'm feeling sad. I can ask, why do I feel sad? That means your conscious brain, your neocortex, is questioning the decisions of your old brain.
Okay.
Your new brain is questioning the decisions of your old brain. So old brain is most of the time spontaneous and impulsive.
Yeah.
And most of the time it's wrong.
Okay.
Right? Most of the time it's wrong. So that's why we have a neocortex. Neocortex is always checking, like I feel bad, but I don't really have any reason to feel bad, right? Then I shouldn't feel bad. I should be happy, right? So we can have that thing. But most of the animals can't do this thing. If they are sad, they're sad. They're happy, they're happy. Okay, let's say now that I'm a little hungry, but I know that I have to finish this shoot. So my new brain is telling the old brain, yes, you are hungry, but
you have to stop.
Not now.
Yeah.
Right? So we have that capability. So I strongly recommend like all the people who are watching this video, read this book. There's this book called Thinking Fast and Slow. As I remember, just Google and you will figure that out. Thinking fast and slow, how this new brain and the old brain is working. And the new brain is always try to be accurate, try to work based on data and evidence, and it's slow and it's always get tired. after some like deliberate thinking process, it's tired. And then you have to sleep and wake up in the next way, and then you can do that process again. But your old brain is collecting tons of data, and in a fraction of a second, it's jumping into conclusions. And most of the time, those conclusions are feelings. Feelings, most of the time, they are wrong. The error rate is higher, but sometimes they are correct. So that's why new brain always should check the old brain. So then we can have this subtle balance, and we can come to a better conclusion without compromising speed and accuracy. Like you have to balance this thing. You know what, like whatever we do, sometimes we screw things up, and it's okay. But if you balance these two brains and their capabilities, you can keep the speed up, you can keep the accuracy up, and you can come up to some kind of sweet balance.
Exactly, Malinda. So when you're explaining it only, I realize actually in the neuro-marketing also, what we are doing basically, even all the website now you can see, they are giving the 3 pricing figures. Because of why, I think this instinctive brain or else this reptilian brain, they just quickly get the decisions by comparing this is the best, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
So that is what they are using, is it?
That's true, because when you have that 3-tier pricing, 1 tier is always there to make the other 2 tiers look like a deal.
Exactly.
So if you do little number crunching, if you give the chance to your new brain to look at that, it'll take couple of minutes, but the new brain will figure out that okay, this is a kind of scam.
Exactly.
Not a scam, but close to a scam.
Yes. So I think we need to have another podcast to talk about the neuromarketing.
Oh yeah.
But again, I want to stick to our topic. I want to discuss few things, Malinda, for this unlearning process, right? So what are the methods we can apply? Because we have discussed much about the rethinking, unlearning. What are the techniques we can apply?
Right. So we understand the process of rethinking. After rethinking, we figure out that we are doing something which we shouldn't do. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Now that we have to change that behavior with something else. So first day, you keep your attention up. You change that behavior purposely, step by step. Like your attention is always watching. Like let's say you are wearing, like I'm wearing usually t-shirts and jeans, right? From tomorrow onwards, because of some business reason, let's say I have to wear a shirt and a sarong. That's going to be a new experience to me, right? Now that I have to unlearn the way I dress for my jeans and t-shirt, now that I have sarong and a shirt, so I had to button it up, and lots of activities to do. In the first day, it's going to be difficult. Second day, it's going to be a little less difficult. Third day, it's going to be way less difficult. So that means now my couple of new neuron networks are firing together and like binding together. So give it a reasonable amount of time. And the research says that it varies from couple of days to couple of hundreds of days. So practice it, keep it up. And if you need it so bad, you'll get it done anyways, right? So give it a reasonable amount of time, then your brain will wire. Then this relearning process is never 100%, as I said before, right? Your old habits is still there, but its strength is lower. The new habit strength is higher. So after certain point, it'll become your new normal behavior. And then it'll become your normal behavior, not new anymore. So give it a reasonable amount of time. Some people say that it'll take 66 days. 66 days average. We know the problem with average, right? So like upper end is like 260 days. The lower end is like 3-4 days. And be prepared to give it maybe 100, maybe 200 days. But as I said before, like when you do this once, twice, thrice, then you learn to like unlearn something and replace that with a new skill really fast. Most of the time.
Yeah, Malinda, don't you agree that most of the successful companies in the world, they have come to this position because of this rapidly changing their environment, as you said, unlearning, and they are rethinking about their processes again and again, as you said, Apple. What do you think?
That's true. most of the big company, they can't change things really fast because they're too big and their inertia is so high. So what they usually do is they set up a separate R&D teams, and most of those R&D teams are independent from each other. So they can act fast and they can make lots of mistakes and learn from those mistakes. One classic example would be SpaceX. So usually when we send a rocket up to Earth's orbit, we know it's going to work, right? But SpaceX is sending a rocket up, it blew up. Then they figure out why it blew up. They fixed it. The second rocket also blew up. Now that they figure out another reason, they fixed that one. And the third one kind of blew up. The fourth one, they actually did it. So that's a rapid iteration is one way to go. But Apple is totally different. When they release something, it's a very polished product, right?
Yeah.
And that means they're doing all of those mistakes privately in the company.
Okay.
Right? But the SpaceX is doing all the mistakes publicly. So we all can see it. So, but either way, the process is identical. So you have to make lots of mistakes and figure out what's working and what's not.
Yes, Malinda, now when you look at a businessman, if he is trying to do something new, I think the probability of succeeding this event might be very less. So most of the cases he will fail from the introducing that product or else that kind of a service. So how he can use this as a rethinking process? So because it's kind of a rethinking that we need to do. As you said, Albert Einstein also did the same thing, isn't it?
Right, that's true. So yes, as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, what you really should do is, we all know that there's a high risk. So how are you going to manage this risk? So probably you can diversify it. So, if you take a look at all the big companies like Google, they have lots of failed products and very few really successful products. I think we should try and replicate that thing as small scale entrepreneurs. So we can try lots of small MVPs in the market. Then we try it okay, this one worked, this one didn't work, this one's not working, delete it, get rid of it. So we can try that approach. Then we can collect lots of data very efficiently about the market, about lots of products in such a short time. Because we don't really have the whole, all the time to do these things, because change, let's say you figure out that the third product is working in the market.
Okay.
And it might work for 3 months. Then it's not working anymore. Then you need a new product. So you should have this parallel processes of rapidly changing products. So, and you should figure out to do that with a minimum investment. Because as in the SME sector, we don't really have tons of capital. So then, and as I said before, all of those things are experiments, not part of you. This failed, no problem. It's okay, delete it. This is working. Okay, now that don't be too attached to it, because after 3 months it might also fail.
Yeah.
So those are experiment, and why are you doing this experiment? To grow a business, make profit, and if it's making profit, nice. If it's not making profit, get rid of it or change it. So have that mentality and do all of those iterations really fast, and set up a company culture to set up all of these iterations really fast. Then you can have rapid business growth.
Yeah, Malinda, before conclude, actually, I want to get some sort of a idea on behalf of everyone, because they might think from tomorrow onwards, I want to practice this, especially the rethinking and unlearning part. How they can include this to their daily routines?
Right. So one thing, keep your attention up. So I can't stress enough, your attention matters a lot, because when we were kids, we pay attention to everything by default, because we don't really have anything established, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So when we are kids, our world model is loosely defined. Wherever you go, you don't know where to step on, right? So you have to pay attention to each and every step and each and every touch. But when we are adult, now that we have a fixed world model and we are so comfortable with it, challenge it. And when you challenge it, and go to a place that you never been to, and try something that you never tried before. So you are always challenging, try to break like little parts of your world model and rebuild it, then you're slowly developing this skill of rethinking and unlearning and relearning. Okay. So challenge all of those things. Like let's say you play guitar, then go ahead and play something else. And you are always reading about right-wing ideas. Spend a couple of hours to read about modern left-wing ideas too. And you are, so see, like now that you are like totally maybe changing a certain part of your world model, and you are reading lots of things about computers, maybe go and read something about the life story of Mozart. So then you are like expanding horizon of your world model. So when you do that every day, rethinking, unlearning and relearning is become your part of life, just your nature. That's who you are. Then lots of things will be easier.
Okay, so thank you very much, Malinda. I think you also able to get more insights today, especially how to think about your business in a different way. Malinda, what is your take-home message to everyone?
Right, yes. As I said before, I can't stress enough, keep your attention up. Attention is everything. Attention is the first step of all the learning processes. Once you have attention, you can slowly reprogram your brain. And before you reprogramming brain is a serious investment. Before you do that, you should have enough data, enough evidence why you should do it. You should have logical grounds to do it. If so, then hold on to it and give it a reasonable amount of time. Then that change will pay off. And if you are running a business, be prepared to do this every day.
Thank you very much. I think the final message is really important for everyone, because we as the businessmen, we need to think about this again, whether we are continuing or whether we are practicing the conventional model, or whether we are rethinking and innovate new thing where we can go our journey very fast. So thank you very much, Malinda, for joining. And this is the first podcast in Business Advisor Global channel, and we have a plan to meet you again with another episode. Thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting me.